Okay, AOC finally responded proudly concerning a high school yearbook photo that proves she grew up in a wealthy suburb. She said, "See, I told you I went to high school."
And I can tell you, I know that when I was waitressing and struggling to put food on the table, for a while there, I did. I tried to stop caring. I tried to just keep my head down, work my shifts, and accept that this is just how things are. But that is no way to live, Arizona. It's no way to live. What I do know is that we don't have to live like this. And in fact, we cannot live like this anymore.
This is ridiculous.
Kelly didn't just take AOC's political circus and burn the tent down. She tore it apart with sharp humor and cutting precision, exposing her grandstanding, viral posing, and empty showmanship like never before. From TikTok-style reactions to dreamy economics, nothing escaped the roast, and the takedown became a public unraveling of the image AOC built on endless hashtags. Anyone who thought AOC had clever comebacks was proven wrong, because this hit left her speechless and completely exposed.
This nonsense from like AOC that he should be impeached is just absurd. Absurd. There's no... Okay, get back to me when you've read the Constitution or get a law degree, because you sound like an... There is absolutely no ground to impeach the president. He 100% was within his constitutional authority and his congressionally authorized authority to do what he did on Saturday.
AOC. What? She's kind of fun in a, a silly but earnest, wrong but adorable way. She's like your daughter when she comes back from her first year at Brown, full of half-baked, half opinions, in need of some gentle, patient deprogramming. But people have to realize new faces doesn't mean new ideas. Drives me crazy. AOC has never introduced a fresh idea or issue in her life.
Greg Gutfeld didn't even need a warm-up before jumping straight into his roast of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Just hearing her name was like smashing a giant red comedy button for him. He lit up instantly, as if someone handed him a golden script labeled unlimited material, and he treated AOC not just as a congresswoman, but as a walking, talking political sketch that accidentally got elected and forgot to switch off the laugh track.
She's like an 80-year-old leftist in a used bookstore. I mean, she may look fresh, but she's as stale as an abandoned futon on the street. It's like, I listen to her, I go, I heard that at Berkeley in 1983. So their problem is, and the reason why they don't have any ideas is they operate on half opinions. Like, what?
He kicked things off by pointing out her strange talent for turning every Instagram live into something that felt like a State of the Union speech for cats and ring lights. Gutfeld said AOC could stand in a room full of real experts and still walk out with a fresh batch of barely digested buzzwords, claiming her ideas were like microwaved leftovers from a college activism rally, just warm enough to smell political, but never safe enough to take seriously.
So by now you heard that AOC, among others, were arrested last night. She truly is an American hero. It was brutal, taken out in cuffs. Well, technically, her shirt had cuffs. Maybe French cuffs, as she did surrender without fighting.
Greg went after her love for drama, saying AOC treated every hallway in Capitol Hill like a catwalk and every disagreement like a chance for a televised meltdown. He joked that she approached legislation the same way a reality show contestant approaches a group challenge. Loud, confused, and absolutely convinced she's the hero, even when everything around her is going up in flames.
As for whether it's a good idea, that's a debate we should be having. And look, if we could get congressional approval of the specific action, fine, I'm okay with that too. If you want to bring it to Congress, go ahead and see how that goes. I don't think it's necessary, but...
Then came the policy section, where Gutfeld eagerly tore apart AOC's most ambitious ideas, calling them a blend of utopian fiction and economic chaos. He joked that the Green New Deal read like a last-minute 7th grade science project, covered in glitter, poster board, and absolutely no real math. He compared her policy work to building IKEA furniture without instructions, and then blaming the chair when it collapses.
Oh, let's do it. What happens? You have repeat criminals wreaking havoc. What if we have sanctuary cities? Hey, let's do it. What happens? Finding sanctuary, safe haven. What if we give trans rights? You just ruin women's sports. You ruin safe spaces. You make kids' lives hell. But
he also had a field day with her non-stop social media presence, saying AOC spent more time making videos than a full-time influencer, but with the twist of not being influenced by actual facts. Greg imagined her staff meetings as a chaotic mix of filters, slogans, and someone shouting about carbon emissions while snapping selfies in an SUV. And the tears. He couldn't ignore them, pointing out how AOC turned every vote she disliked into a full Shakespearean tragedy, complete with shaky voice and dramatic pauses. According to Greg, when AOC didn't get her way, it wasn't just a policy disagreement, it was the fall of Rome with better lighting. Meanwhile, on another platform, Megyn Kelly brought her own style with sharp, controlled precision. Where Gutfeld brought heat, Megyn used a scalpel, quietly peeling apart AOC's image layer by layer, each one more tear-inducing than the last. Megyn started by calling out the illusion of AOC's intellect, noting how she rattled off half-digested talking points with the confidence of someone who skimmed a Wikipedia page and mistook it for a degree. She explained that AOC's speeches were powered more by emotion than structure, sounding like a motivational poster that somehow made its way into Congress.
There's a beautiful little town called Yorktown Heights in Westchester. It's not the fanciest of Westchester towns, but it ain't the Bronx by any measure. And the reason this is relevant is because a congresswoman who you may know as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been telling us for years that she is from the Bronx. And recently she had a fight with President Trump over tweet, text, truth, whatever. And she played tough and said, "Oh, don't you mess with me. I'm a Bronx girl. And we eat Queens boys for breakfast."
Kelly mocked AOC's habit of using moral outrage as a stand-in for actual data, explaining how AOC treated every disagreement not as a simple difference in opinion, but as proof that someone was a villain. According to Megyn, the world isn't divided into good guys and bad guys, though AOC acted like she never received that message, likely because she was too busy staging another protest inside her own office. Then came the talk about performance politics, where Megyn said AOC didn't legislate, she live-streamed, she didn't debate, she performed, arriving in Congress with a script, a spotlight, and no real plan beyond collecting likes. Megyn described how AOC treated press conferences like audition tapes for a dramatic role that didn't exist anywhere but in her imagination, while also roasting her environmental poses, questioning how someone so focused on saving the planet could stack up more flights than a touring DJ. She said AOC's climate talk had the depth of a bumper sticker and the consistency of a weather forecast scribbled in crayon. Megyn then moved to AOC's love for outrage, showing how every headline became a personal crusade and every opposing voice a crisis, saying AOC treated public policy like an endless social justice poetry night, with each line more exaggerated than the last.
But if her pants had cuffs, she would have pretended to be in leg irons too. But real handcuffs, not so much. But that didn't stop her from pretending, and I hate it when people do this to me. When I ask people to put on handcuffs and they say, "I'll just pretend I have them on," I'd be like, "Sure, and I'll pretend to pay you after."
Megyn couldn't resist teasing AOC about her constant references to humble beginnings, joking that AOC stretched her old bartender job into the political version of a Marvel origin story. She said AOC talked about it as if she invented struggle, and Megyn half expected her next slogan to read, "From cocktails to Congress, a revolution in heels." Back with Gutfeld, he wasn't ready to slow down as he jumped into AOC's battles with the media, especially her ongoing feud with reality itself. He joked that AOC acted like being questioned was the same as being persecuted, and every fact check felt to her like a crime against her feelings. Greg said she handled criticism like a toddler denied candy, loud, indignant, and absolutely certain she was the victim. He laughed at how she built a brand around being the voice of the people while rarely dealing with real people, saying her idea of constituents looked more like Twitter activists, TikTok philosophers, and climate protesters glued to sidewalks. He also questioned how someone claiming to fight for working families spent so much time dressing up for magazine covers, and he poked fun at her red carpet moments, calling them fashion statements with about as much subtlety as a jackhammer.
And respectfully, AOC, well, that's real cute, except she only lived in the Bronx until she was age 5, when at best you're in usually kindergarten, maybe first grade. And she spent the rest of her childhood, 1 through 12th grade, in Yorktown Heights, which is Westchester. And by any measure, it is richer, nicer, and more white collar than the Bronx, with all due respect to my friends in the Bronx.
Greg claimed AOC tried to play Robin Hood in designer shoes, grabbing attention from real issues while giving speeches that sounded like tweets pushed through a thesaurus. Meanwhile, Megyn continued highlighting AOC's contradictions, noting how she preached empowerment while calling herself powerless, demanded accountability while dodging it, and praised transparency while avoiding any tough interview without pre-approved questions. Megyn said AOC mastered switching between revolutionary and victim, depending on which angle looked better on camera. She focused on how AOC simplified complex debates into viral one-liners, treating anyone asking for details like they were blocking progress, saying AOC talked about capitalism like it was Voldemort and used every economic question as a chance to blame billionaires instead of doing math. Megyn pointed out her habit of building movements with no structure and big plans with no follow-through, explaining that AOC treated politics like a college club. Lots of posters, big ideas, and nothing left once the pizza was gone.
Of course, AOC was mocked on social media for imitating being handcuffed, which is a change from her usually being mocked for imitating a congresswoman. That's not even close to being as disgusting as I can be. She, in fact, was gingerly escorted away to a holding area where she kept up the phony display before finally raising her fist to supporters. She then crossed her wrists behind her back, again in the faux handcuffed position. It's as tall a tale as AOC nearly being killed on January.
Gutfeld came back swinging, calling AOC the queen of delayed revelations, saying she had a talent for remembering trauma only after it turned into a trending topic. He mocked her sudden dramatic flashbacks that always seemed perfectly timed with new legislation or fresh media attention, joking that if there were an award for best political improv drama, she'd win it every time and proudly thank herself on stage. He also poked fun at her views on international issues, saying her foreign policy approach boiled down to feel bad, blame America, demand change, offer no plan, imagining her trying to fix global crises with inspirational quotes and vegan recipes. Then Megyn stepped in again, examining AOC's shift from activist outsider to establishment favorite without ever admitting she changed, saying AOC wanted the rewards of rebellion and the perks of power while pretending to stand outside the very system she campaigned to join, calling it the political version of crashing a party and complaining about the music you picked.
And now some of her schoolmates, separate and apart from Benny, are weighing in on her claims. I'll get to the Benny thing in one second, but there was a piece in the New York Post talking about how she's embarrassing herself. She's embarrassing herself now with this Bronx girl.
She mocked the photo ops, the staged outrage, and the endless stream of controversies that always ended with a tearful video and a fundraising link. Megyn said AOC had turned congressional work into a performance series, with every episode starring her as the misunderstood hero bravely fighting reality itself. Both Gutfeld and Kelly agreed on one thing: AOC wasn't an accident. She was a carefully crafted brand packaged as authenticity, sold as a revolution, and powered entirely by Wi-Fi. They didn't see her as dangerous, just predictable, like a script full of costume changes and a protest sign paired with designer boots. Greg joked that if AOC were given a week to write a bill, she'd return with a spoken word poem and a playlist, imagining her trying to pass laws with glitter pens and TikTok clips. According to him, AOC didn't represent the future. She represented the moment politics swiped left on substance. Megyn, always sharp, ended her roast by warning that AOC's biggest threat wasn't her critics, but time itself, because slogans fade, hashtags vanish, and eventually people start asking for real results. And when that moment arrives, AOC will learn that likes don't pass laws, retweets don't fix infrastructure, and no amount of dramatic camera tears can replace actual work.
AOC was on 60 Minutes last night. Quite a feat for a newcomer. Must be all her great new ideas.
People are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes. Once you get to like the tippy tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%.
Anderson's like,
What an expression. Now, the real story isn't AOC's very old ideas. It's the media's gushy view of her. Even with her old ideas, she gets on six.
But they both made it clear the roast wasn't over, because AOC was still on the stage, still performing, and still gathering applause from people who hadn't even checked the script. As long as she kept talking, Gutfeld and Kelly would keep sharpening their jokes, sipping their coffee, and waiting for the next scene to begin. Gutfeld jumped right back in, saying AOC's biggest achievement so far was turning every policy discussion into a full episode of performative political theater, insisting she didn't just miss the point. She brought props, outfits, and a speech that always ended in applause from people who weren't really listening. According to Greg, AOC could turn a simple pothole complaint into a national debate about feelings, inequality, and whether or not the asphalt had privilege.
Let's check in on AOC and see what she has to say.
Any quick reaction
Top
on what's
five.
going on with Elon Musk and President Trump on Twitter right now?
Oh man, the girls are fighting, aren't they? I think this breakup we've been
Misgendered.
seeing a long time coming, but we'll see what the impacts are of it legislatively.
Okay. You're so cool referring to them as the girls. She's above it all, Ben. That's what she's trying to telegraph. You see, she's the adult in the room, the one out there who does a preacher accent, and she leans into her fake Latina accent. And like, she's the adult in the
He took direct aim at her so-called leadership moments, saying that whenever a real crisis hit, AOC showed up late, unprepared, and overly dramatic, like a firefighter arriving at a blaze with a scented candle and a vlog camera. Greg said she cared more about shaping the storyline than solving the actual problem, and her followers consumed it all like political popcorn. Megyn Kelly stepped back in with another sharp jab, pointing out AOC's instinct to moralize everything while ignoring the practical side, saying she was the kind of leader who could guilt someone into recycling a straw while flying private to her next speaking gig. Megyn mocked her selective outrage, her habit of exploding over internet trends while avoiding the slow, demanding work of real governing. Kelly finished with a smirk, saying AOC's biggest fear wasn't being wrong. It was becoming irrelevant because in her world, silence isn't reflection, it's defeat. And as long as cameras, controversies, and carefully rehearsed indignation exist, AOC will keep talking whether or not anyone is still listening.